Hi, my name is Nathan, and today we're going to do a comic book review of Spawn, issue number 298, brought to you by Rated Comics. Let's get to it. Yes, I'm taking it back a little bit. If you watch my video, The History of Spawn, that covers issues number 296 and 297, I did mention I was going to do the best I can to cover all the remaining Spawns from 298 up to its current issue as a way to catch up to Spawn for any new Spawn readers or anyone that wants to get into Spawn. So thank you guys for your support on that, but I'm gonna do the best I can to catch up and get to this content right now. We begin this issue with Al has decided to increase his media presence by giving interviews about his mission. Unfortunately, that's gonna draw more attention to himself and it'll put a larger target on his back of everyone that he knows. And in this interview includes both government and corporate levels that hold some form of deep-seated power, and they don't want Spawn or Al saying any of this and letting this war between heaven and hell getting out, because it doesn't benefit the public. It benefits them that they want the public to be in silence and not know about it. But for years, Spawn has said he's tried battling heaven and hell away from the public spotlight, but to him, that was the foolish part. The only way to expose their motives and existence is for him to go out in the public and speak in the media. And in order to try to discredit Al again, the interviewer is like, okay, and since you're doing this interview remotely from an undisclosed space that's untraceable, I mean, how can we trust you if we can't trace your location? Come on now, Spawn has to protect himself, right? At the conclusion of this interview, when this interview is over with, Al recognizes that they don't understand. They don't believe him. Mark tells Al to give the people time as he is processing this himself. He also does confirm to Al that the connection for the interview was secure and clean, so don't trip. Spawn asks Mark to set him up with more interview exclusives so he can go as wide with this as possible. He does mention that he doesn't want to be set up with the major networks as most of them have ties to some of the shadow players. Mark tells Spawn to relax and he has the upper hand in all this. Spawn doesn't take too kindly to that remark as he is high-strung, and putting himself out there like that has also created a target on his own ass, and he knows it. Mark tells Spawn that he didn't mean it literally, but just reassures Al that he will begin looking for some new outlets for him to spread the message out, but tells Al to keep it in mind that the news outlets do want to know how we are tapping into their network feeds with untraceable signals. Mark concludes by telling Al that, yo, I got a regular job, man. I really should be heading back. Spawn agrees. And he's like, yes, you should keep your sense of normality. And Mark, and if showing his little bit of sense of humor, is like, yeah, because I'm normal and you're the dead guy. Lacking any sense of humor at this point, Spawn envelops Mark in this crimson tendril, sucking them into the blackness called the Void. And then a heartbeat later, the Void vomits them out in Mark's residence and he gasps for air. And Mark's like, dude, is there another way to do this? You don't even know this is healthy for me. You'll live. Go do your thing, says Al. Thanks for your concern, guy. So hours later at his workplace, Mark gets woken up abruptly by his co-worker and he tells Mark that the boss isn't in any kind of mood for slacking off. Mark asks how long he was out and his colleague tells him for about 10 minutes ago. So this work with Spawn is definitely taking a toll on Mark, of course. Now Mark has to answer about his whereabouts since he wasn't seen at work all day yesterday. He answers with, I was chasing down a lead, and his co-worker seems to have bought it for the moment with his response with, it must have been some lead then. But between Al Simmons going on air, the stock market crashing, for all we know that's the shadow players or something bigger happening here, and the other bull jive to keep his employee and co-workers distracted, nobody probably noticed anyway. As they continue to exchange dialogue with Al Simmons / Spawn speaking openly in the media, a whole bunch of officials are getting nervous. Mark did some digging and it's not just the US that's on edge. France, Germany, and a dozen other countries are limiting access to intel in a global effort to shut down intel. They don't know what they could be hiding, but Al did say in the interview that this was only going to be the tip of the iceberg on things that we're going to try to cover up. Their conversation continues for another few hours or so, but ultimately they have to go home and it's end of the day, man. I'm trying to go home and kick off my shoes and relax my feet. But Mark gets approached by these FBI agents. We like to know about the whereabouts of Al. Is it Simmons? I mean, I've only seen him on the TV and the internet. And these FBI agents are like, no, anything else? Well, they ask him some more questions, and the questions go from Simmons to his girlfriend, Susan Matthews. And Mark's like, dude, get your hands off me, man. Calm down. We just want to know the whereabouts of Miss Matthews. What about her? Well, when was the last time you saw her? Her friends? Yes, she seems to be missing, but none of her co-workers have seen her for nearly 2 months. You lived with her, didn't you? Yeah, but we broke up. She broke up with me, you know? The FBI agent asks, and did you ever report her missing to anyone? Mark's like, I never said she was missing. And all of a sudden, you can tell these sassy FBI agents, they got to be more than what they're leading on to be. So they take Mark in for more questioning. Mark's like, I want my lawyer. They're like, hey, look, we're just gonna have a little friendly conversation amongst ourselves. Then we'll talk about getting your lawyer. It's very sussy, right? Sit down, Mark, sit your ass down, and you can tell, like, are we ready? Damn, at least do a little pregame warm-up of interrogation first. What happened to good cop, bad cop? But this is FBI. We don't play that. Or maybe they do, I don't know. Whoever they are, they're going back and forth on how they're going to do this interrogation with Mark. So they ask about Miss Matthews. When did you least see her? And this back and forth dialogue of, I told you she left and she never called again. What day was that? I don't remember where she was heading. I don't know where she was heading. And you never talked to her after that? Of course not. Well, guess what, Mark? We found DNA evidence of her blood on one of your floors. And Mark's like, what, dude? You violated my rights, man. You broke into my apartment. Well, something like that. But here's what we got. Your girlfriend is missing. You never called to report, and her blood is in your apartment. What do you think the jury's gonna make of that? I don't know. You tell me. I'm not gonna incriminate myself. You're the cop here. You're looking at least 7 to 10 years. So tell us the truth. And Mark's like, I don't understand. And then, okay, another agent, or I'm not even gonna call them agents anymore, because we know at this point they're not agents. There's something else. You see that camera out there? Agent Jensen, just turn it off. There won't be a record of anything that happens from here on out. And Mark's like, dude, is that a threat? We don't threat. We act. So where the hell is Spawn? Now you switch it up to Spawn, and as you can see this agent's teeth. Now we know this is either a Heaven's Army or Hell's Army or Agent of Army, whatever. His teeth are just showing up. We've been watching you, Rosen. We've seen how many times you came out of that house on the Riverside Road, but inside, well, no one appears to live there. Mark's like, dude, I want a lawyer. How do you do it? Those interviews. How are you linking a signal into them without even us being able to trace it back to you? And before you give me another one of your lies, look at these teeth. They cut through human flesh like lunch meat, baby. And Mark's like, I don't know. I ain't telling you. Or what? You gonna kill me if I don't tell you? Well, how does it work? How you do those signals? How does it work with Spawn? I don't know. He just shows up, wraps his cape around me, and somehow we're transported to some dark other place in the middle of nowhere. Don't ask me where nowhere is, because I haven't got a clue. Liar! And when he puts his hand around his throat, about to beat the truth out of Mark, even though Mark is telling the truth at this point, when Spawn emerges and chains forced to shed the agents or whoever these people are, just ripping the shreds. And when he does it exposes Heaven's worst, and it's the Redeemer. You're not supposed to be here. Now there's a method to what we're doing, and timing is a crucial part of it. So unless you want an entire building of feds crawling up in this office, I suggest we take this battle elsewhere, Spawn. Oh no, we're staying for as long as we will. And we don't want to leave until we come to our senses, Eddie. So I don't know who Eddie is with the Redeemer, but Eddie's gone. He's left this body a long time ago, says Redeemer. Then it's time we bring him back, and Spawn and Redeemer go in at it. Meanwhile, in Albania, in a hidden forest hill in the southern border, we get this mystery guy who's talking on the phone, talking about that he's been reading the results. Panic has already set in from our shipments into Libya and Egypt. The infection level should increase at the desired rate and spread throughout the continent as planned. Greece and Italy have shown encouraging results so far. So divert all shipments into all those areas and along the European front. This will get Spawn's attention in due order. But don't worry about it. Let's just keep it that way. Heaven tends to care more about human souls than it should. It's why they never defeated us. They're unable to keep their emotions out of things. And to answer your last question, yes, the trap is set, and it's only a matter of time before Al Simmons steps into it. And that grin of like Violator, whatever it is, I'm going to say it looks like the Violator. So East Harlem, New York, we see Nyx. For the past few years, she's used both her cunning and mystic skills to keep one step ahead of the dark forces still on Earth, because ever since her first encounter with Spawn, she too has played a small part in keeping the long reach of hell at bay. And I did go over a little bit about Nyx and She Spawn Origins Explained if you do want to check that out. She also has been forced into a life of isolation as she continues to hide from her enemies. But without Simmons revealing his identity based on that immediate interview earlier, she also knows that what that means for someone like her. She knows that a very powerful cabal of non-humans will take what Simmons has done as an act of war. And that cabal will go after anyone even remotely connected to Spawn to flush Spawn out. It's why she's been reaching out to some of those fringe players. And one of those players has been Jessica. Jessica's like, I haven't heard back from you in a while. I want to make sure I didn't spook you away from our last conversation. No, we're good, says Nix. I've just been diving into some of those contexts you gave me, but also reached out to some of my contacts to see exactly how everyone's been reacting to Simmons' big announcement. So Jessica's like, my sources say Simmons has been traveling the world and doing a pretty forceful job of convincing bookkeepers from some of the world's biggest corporations to retire or become whistleblowers. And I don't think it's a coincidence. Most of them came from companies that are hemorrhaging the most in the stock market. So Jessica asks, to what end is this retaliation against him going to come, you know? And Nick's like, I used to talk about how money is their greatest power. Destroy that and their influence shrivels. Their geopolitical structure will crumble, but there's a downside. Once he's not thinking about, some people on his side and some of his contacts are gone. Jessica's like, what do you mean they're gone? Disappear. Hell's going after everyone Spawn's ever talked to. And then Jessica's like, then we need to be very careful because we'd be on that list too. Meanwhile, Spawn versus Redeemer, they're fighting it out. Spawn bashes his head against the wall. They're playing you, Eddie. Wake up. You don't have to do this. And Mark's like, you know this guy? And Spawn's like, yeah, I do know the guy. But like the rest of you, they just think of him as collateral damage. He's better than that. So is he like Heaven's Hellspawn or something? He just doesn't know yet, but let's get out of here before things get more complicated. They switch off the lights, they go dark, and then all of a sudden they transport back into that house in the Riverdale where they can hope to catch their breath before teleporting, before doing any more work. Unfortunately for the both of them, a voice comes out, we've been waiting for you. Heaven and Hell have other plans for Spawn. And Spawn in Hell's holds his breath for an instant and then does the only thing that makes any sense. Fight! And that's where we end this issue. I love this issue. I mean, you can tell the tension is increasing and the stakes have been raising for the characters in this issue and its overall story. I think McFarlane does a great job of keeping the story interesting and engaging with the dialogue and plotting. The bigger story continues to keep the attention of me, as well as hopefully you, the reader, by being focused on Al's plans and how he fights the forces amassed against him. It makes it interesting, and I think it's definitely a gangster issue. And the art is not too shabby as well. But with that being said, Spawn, issue number 298. What you guys think of the comic book? Comment below, let me know. And also, if you like the content we're throwing up, you know what to do. Don't be shy and don't be stingy. Here at Rated Comics, we do awesome comic book reviews, comic book related content with the occasional comic book giveaway. And I promise I'll get to Spawn 299 in the next week or the following, because I got a lot of comic book reviews I got to do next week as well. Thanks again for watching. Until next time.